We'll let in some other folks as they join the waiting room, but want to be mindful of everybody's time. So my name is Grace Ward. I'm the Associate Director of Annual Giving with the Fund for Davidson team. I'm joined tonight with my colleague, Judith Rolls, who is the Senior Associate Director in the Office of Alumni and Family Engagement. We're really thrilled to have the opportunity to welcome all of you to the special edition reunion back to school class featuring Rod Cate, class of 1988. Before we get started, I want to go over a few Zoom keeping items. We've muted all participants. We ask that you remain muted throughout the event while Rod is presenting. If you are comfortable and you have not done so already, please change your Zoom name to your first and your last name now. You can add your class year as well if you would like. You can rename yourself using the participants button. It's at the bottom of your screen. You can hover the mouse over your name and then click the more button. And so that way you're able to change your name and so folks can more easily say hello. The chat feature will be available throughout this presentation. Please note that Rod will not be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions for him or any tech issues, please send a chat to myself or Judith, and we'll be able to help you tonight. There will be time for questions in a Q&A portion of the evening after the presentation. And so you'll have a chance to unmute and share your comment or question to the end. For optimal viewing today, we recommend hovering your mouse at the top of your screen, right at the top of the black Zoom screen. You'll see view pop up. And so if you click on that and then select the option that says speaker, you should be able to see Rod pinned to the top of your screen when we go ahead and get started. We also have enabled live transcription during this call. So if you want to enable this on your end, you can hover over the live transcription button on your screen and subtitles should appear. These are not always the most accurate, so we just ask for your grace and understanding if sometimes it messes up a word, but know that that is an option for you this evening. And then again, if you have any tech issues throughout the program, please send a chat to Judith or myself and we'll be able to help you troubleshoot on our end. So now with that out of the way, I want to turn to our program. So our presenter tonight is Rod Cate, class of 1988. In 1981, Rod broke his neck playing high school football. It resulted in a spinal cord injury and immediate paralysis from the neck down. In the blink of an eye, Rod went from athlete to quadriplegic. He was fortunate to regain the ability to walk, but has lived with significant paralysis ever since. So he is now married with 3 adult children and has practiced law in Mobile, Alabama for over 30 years. And he is teaching tonight's course on resilience. So we're really happy to and thankful to have you with us here, Rod, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks a lot. When I was first asked to teach this course on resilience, I thought, oh, wow, this is going to be just awesome. And then I thought, well, wait a minute, this is, how do you teach a course on resilience? And this isn't like teaching a chemistry course or, teaching somebody how to build a birdhouse. It's like, okay, how am I going to do this? We got this amorphous topic like resilience. And so, what am I going to do? And so, I thought about it and I think, well, it wasn't by just chance that I was selected to teach this course of my classmates. Everybody knows, I've had a somewhat of a significant event in my life. And so I think the best way to go about it is I'm just going to kind of talk about my life experiences, kind of some of the thoughts I have. And then at the end, I really hope we can open it up for a discussion. So you guys can kind of give me your thoughts. But so let's just kind of jump into, let me give you a bit of the history. As was said, when I was 15 years old playing high school football, I broke my neck. I grew up in King, North Carolina, which is about an hour and a half from Davidson. It's just north of Winston-Salem. And so I just finished my junior high years and I was going into South Stokes High School. That's where I went to high school. And it was even before the football season started, we had what was known as football camp, where everybody that wanted to try out for the football team would go spend the whole week, live on at the high school and, have practice 3 times a day. And the camp culminated with an inter-squad scrimmage where we would divide up and play, in front of the crowd. And, that's that's the first time I'd ever really played in front of a big crowd on such a nice field. Because, only 2 sophomores made the varsity team. I was one of them. And I was going to be the starting free safety on defense. And so the game started, we're playing defense. There's a pass over the middle, and I see the play happening. And so I'm going to, try to hit the guy really hard to make sure he doesn't catch the ball. Kind of interesting. The guy that I hit he normally played offensive guard. He was about 6'4" and weighed about 265 pounds. I'm 15 years old, and I just turned 15 in May. This is August, and physically, the truth of the matter is, physically, I probably shouldn't have been out there. Talent-wise, I should have been playing, but what happened is I lowered my head too much when I tried to make the tackle, and I hit his thigh with the top of my head. I lowered my head too much when I made the tackle. It wasn't something I was trying to do on purpose, but it was just a kind of a reaction on what you do sometimes when you're making a tackle. And so when I hit, I crushed 2 vertebrae in my neck. And when that happened, I had spinal cord damage. And so when I hit him, I landed face down with my head kind of to the side, and my arms were kind of up like this. And I can remember, even to this day, looking out, I saw my right arm just laying on the ground. I couldn't feel anything, couldn't move anything. And I made that kind of the thought in my head, all right, I'm going to try to get up. And I tried to do that kind of a push-up motion, but nothing moved. But I did see my arm, it just rolled over. And I didn't feel it roll over. And I knew it was still attached to me, but it seemed like it was just miles away. So I knew something was bad wrong. My brother, Mike, who also attended Davidson and graduated, he was playing cornerback with me, and he came over and said, "Hey, Rod, come on, get up." And I said, "Mike, I can't move anything." And so they took me down to Baptist Hospital in Winston-Salem that night, performed surgery on my neck where they fused 3 or 4 of the vertebrae together. Actually, I think it's C3 through C6 that has just metal in my neck. And so, now I'm down at Baptist Hospital in Winston-Salem. I'm 15 years old, and I can't move anything. I'm completely paralyzed from the neck down. I get the doctors come in, and I get you're probably never going to walk again talk. And so it was probably a month that I didn't move anything. What happened was they eventually started giving me steroids because my spinal cord, it was bruised very badly and damaged. And it had swollen. So the steroids were to get the spinal cord to go down. Well, when that happened, I got very fortunate in that I started to be able to move some things again. The first thing I moved was the small toe on my left foot right beside my pinky toe. I looked down one day and I just tried to move it, and it just barely moved. And that was the beginning of everything coming back. And it's kind of odd that what came back first were my feet and legs, and it kind of moved up. The last thing I could actually move were my hands. And so, once the movement started, then I got shipped over across town to a rehab facility where I stayed for another 2.5 months and did rehab every day until I was able to, to go home. And it's kind of interesting, with all the steroids that I was given, I had this horrendous steroid-induced acne that made my face break out. I was shaved bald for the surgery, and this was before I could even move my hands. So I couldn't, I mean, the acne would just itch so badly. And at night I couldn't do this to get any relief. And that was quite an experience, that when you can't move your hands and you just want to rub your face and you can't, you learn a lot about patience in times like that. But anyway, so I go to the rehab facility, there for 2.5 months, work hard. And I actually, it's finally time to go. And I remember, walking out of the rehab facility that day, and it's inpatient, so it's like a hospital. And, at that time I was walking, I had those forearm crutches that I think you've probably seen, they go around and, and I remember it, this was like a big deal for me to, like, I've been, for 3.5 months, either in a hospital or that type of inpatient setting. And I remember it was just my mom came down to pick me up. It's about a 25-minute drive from King, North Carolina, where we were. And I remember walking out, saying goodbye to the therapist, got in the car, went home, and that was it. And, it was kind of an anticlimactic experience. There was no big celebration, no big party or anything, and I think my parents did that kind of on purpose, because the message to me at that time was, look, that it's great, we're through this point in your life, but now it's time to plug back into life. And that's what I did. My first day of high school as a student at South Stokes High was the Monday after the Thanksgiving holiday. That's when I first went back to school. And then I did. I plugged right back in. It's amazing to have such a really life-changing event. Before this happened, I was a very good athlete. I played all the sports. And now, not only am I not an athlete again, I'm just completely, physically, it's everything is completely different. But it was kind of, it's kind of weird when you think about it, that, I did plug right back into high school. I graduated valedictorian from my high school. And I actually gave my valedictorian speech on basically on the same spot where I broke my neck, because that happened kind of right at midfield. Then, went to Davidson. Then after Davidson, went to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, where I got my JD and MBA. I've been in Mobile since 1992, practicing law. Like they said earlier, been married 30 years at the end of this month, 3 adult kids, and here I am. So now we're completely caught up on my history. About 4 years ago, I wrote a book, and it was called Get Back Up. This is the book I wrote, which was kind of a fun experience too. And it's a memoir on how not to allow a devastating, life-changing event ruin your quest for a great life. And I did it. I self-published it on Amazon, and it basically, it goes through all my stories, and I talk about a lot of the cases I've tried, and talks about kind of what it's like to be a trial lawyer. I'm on the defense side though. When you have a physical disability, and kind of some of the things that I have to go through that other lawyers don't. Just for instance, just getting to the courtroom. Then when I get to the courtroom, I always got to kind of plan how I'm going to get from counsel table to the podium to be in front of the jury. Kind of how I'm going to choreograph or orchestrate the easiest way to get there. Then there's something that probably no one would think about is in trial, of course I'm wearing a suit, but I've also got to wear dress shoes. I'm not going to come in there with a suit and tennis shoes. And so those are harder to walk in for me. And they also have to be broken in well. You can't show up with a new pair of shoes that are stiff, I gotta have on shoes I'm used to walking in. And so I have a pair of trial shoes that I've had for 10 years that I only wear for trial, because I want to be comfortable in my shoes, but they also have to look good. So just stuff like that. And travel, I've become not so stubborn. It used to be when I first started, I would refuse to even think about getting in a wheelchair in an airport. And I remember one of the first times I flew to the Atlanta airport, and I'm sure probably everybody on here has been to the Atlanta airport, but you come in and then you take the train, and I remember this one time, and I normally don't, get off in Atlanta. Atlanta's always, just a hub on the way somewhere else. But this time the deposition was in Atlanta. And so I mistakenly get off on the T gate, ticketing, thinking that's the front of the airport, but it was not. And so I get off the train, and here I am with my suitcase, which this is before rolling suitcases were invented. So here I am hauling this big suitcase, and I think it's about a 300-500 yard walk from the T gate to the front of the airport. And I'm just thinking, man, I'm never going to get there, but eventually I did. But anyway, so those are just kind of the things that, as a lawyer, there's some of the things that I got to do that others don't, but which is fine. But to me, the most fulfilling and rewarding thing I have done is a couple years ago, I started a podcast called Rocket Motivation. And on the podcast, I bring on guests who have dealt with and overcome adversity in their lives. And so I get them, they come on, we try to shoot for 30 minutes. And so the first, 10 minutes, we're kind of going through their factual background, kind of, what's happened to them in their lives. And then the last 20, they talk about, advice they would give in overcoming adversity. And I'm telling you, these stories are, they're just spectacular of things that people have gone through. And, I get to meet all these people, and I get to learn from them that, what's happened to me compared to some of these my guests. God, it'd be like I had a hangnail or something. It's just, they're just spectacular stories. And then another thing that, you guys know that are in our class, Tracy Kugler passed away. She had brain cancer. She came on my show probably a year before that happened. And now, Tracy's story is forever, because, there's no shelf life for a podcast. Her story now will live forever. It's her voice, her telling her story of having brain cancer and the treatment she was going through, and, trying to overcome it. It's just an incredibly inspirational story. And what I've given her the platform to where it lives forever. And so that's something that I've really enjoyed doing, and it is by far the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life. But so let's talk about. So I'm here to talk about resilience, and I think the best way to start is, I Googled resilience, like I think we would all do. And so I got a couple websites, and this one's from the Very Well Mind, what makes a person resilient. Some of the main characteristics: awareness, self-control, problem-solving skills, and social support. I read that, I didn't get much out of that. Although the social support, I think, is very important, and we'll talk about that more at the end. And then there was another website, the Feeling Good MD, the 5 pillars for resilience. And self-awareness, number one. They must have copied each other. mindfulness, self-care, positive relationships, and purpose. The positive relationships, again, I think that's very important. So then I went to the American Psychological Association. What is meant by a resilient person? And it says, resilience is the process and outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experiences, especially through mental, emotional, and behavioral flexibility and adjustments to external and internal demands. I mean, that seems like a pretty all-encompassing definition of what resilience is. And I think it's important too to note that it says resilience is the process and outcome. So it's the process and then the outcome both. And then finally, I just looked up resilience in the dictionary, and I thought this to me is the best definition of resilience. First of all, as it's a noun, it's defined as the capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from difficulties. Then it says semicolon, toughness. I think of all this, I think toughness could have just been the definition of resilience to me. But the definition is interesting because the capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from difficulties. So, being resilient doesn't mean it's not withstand and recover quickly. It's withstand or to recover quickly, because here's the thing: you don't always recover. Not only do you not recover quickly from what might happen to you, you might not recover at all, or at least completely back to where you were. And so that to me, and of course, that's kind of where I've been. I've recovered, from my injury. I recovered, mentally and emotionally and all that part of it, I think pretty well. But physically, no. And so, I think, so what I kind of want to talk about resilience is, how are you going to live your life when you can't recover what you lost? How are you going to be resilient, in that situation? And, one thing I have learned through all this is that life can change in the blink of an eye. And it's really our lives. And it's all about dealing with adversity. How are you going to do it? We all have challenges. Some are just, some can be tougher than others. But and that's one thing though on my podcast. You'll have people with different adversities. One thing we never do, we never compare adversities. We never, because what's going on in your life is important to you. And so we never. I'll have some guests come on and say, "Oh God, but what I'm going through is nothing compared to some of these." Well, no, it is, because that's what's going on in your life, and that's what's important. But so the big question is, when you do have this life-changing moment, and it's not like all of us are going to have these horrible life-changing moments, but there are going to be times in our lives, and I'm sure we've all gone through them, that have not been so great, and it's things that we have to deal with. And so the question always becomes then, how are you going to deal with it? And to me, about resilience is, how are you going to move forward? That's the big question. And just in looking back through this, for me, I think it's important to accept the fact that life is not fair. What happened to me wasn't fair. What happens to anybody that has something that bad happen in their life, it's not fair, but that's life, and I think that's a concept that everyone needs to understand, that is that life isn't fair. And I think though, if you think that life is supposed to be just fair, you can sometimes fall into that victim mentality. And, you know, I've never really thought of myself as a victim as to what happened. I've never really felt sorry for myself or, you know, said, why did this happen to me? This is unfair. You know, what this is life. You know, that's how it happens. But, you know, to me, what it's about is life. It's all about not quitting. You know, throughout my time, and thank goodness it doesn't happen that often, but occasionally, you know, I'll trip and fall down. Now, over the years, I've learned how to fall better than I knew early on. You know, for some reason, when I fall, you know, your natural tendency is to kind of put your hands down to try to protect yourself. But this finger over here, for some reason, when I'm like start that process, it would bend down, and I have broken the end of this finger right here 3 times from falling, and it just, I mean, it snaps down. There's blood. I mean, and for some reason, it's just that finger. And what happened, you know, so I go to the hospital or the emergency room. One good thing, I defend doctors mostly in what I do, and so that's a good thing down here, because I get into the ER pretty quick if I need to get in. But you know, but that's happened, you know, a few times. But you know, the way I look at it is, I mean, that's not something I want to have happen, and it's been years since that's happened, and I hope that it never happens again. But you got, it's kind of the way you look at life. The way I look at it is, I'm fortunate to be able to do that. I'm fortunate to be able to trip and fall, because had I not got movement back, you know, I would have spent the rest of my life in a wheelchair, and I would not have had the opportunity to trip and fall. And so it's always, to me, you know, is it the glass half full or the glass half empty? And I'm kind of a glass half full guy. So, I mean, I think, it truly is, you know, how you want to look at life. And I know this is a cliche, but it's not the number of times you fall, it's the number of times you get back up. I mean, that's really what it's all about. But, you know, but another thing, though, it's really not, I've never thought that there was anything unique about me, that I'm more special, that I'm more resilient than the next guy. You know, it's just that it's, like I said, it's all about just moving forward. And I found, and I want to share this passage from a book with you. I was reading a book. This is one of my buddies at the office just gave me this book. So this is a great book to read. It's just a novel, funny, kind of a set in the future. And actually, it's called Futuristic Violence in Fancy Suits is the name of the book. And it's kind of a, I mean, I'll just give you a little background so you can understand the context of what I'm about to read. But the heroine is, she's a girl and probably maybe 20 years old, young, inexperienced. She gets thrust into, she's kind of the chosen one who, all this, you know, things are going bad in the future and everybody's kind of rallying around her. So she's thrust into this position that she's never been in before. And, you know, other people are trying to kill her. And it's just, I mean, but so she's had enough. She's not used to this, and she's just going to go home, and she wants just to quit, so she's had enough. And so this is the conversation when she tells her mentor, basically, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And he says, that right there is the difference between the heroes and the nobodies. The difference between people like you and people like me. People like me know there is no magic. There is only the grind. Work looks like magic to those unwilling to do it. And then she says, I get it. I'm lazy. I'm stupid. And then he breaks in. He goes, you didn't hear a word I said. You say you're not a hero. Well, I'm going to tell you the best and worst thing you've ever heard. Heroes aren't born. You just go out there and grind it out. You fail and you look foolish and you just keep grinding. There is nothing else. There is no chosen one. There is no destiny. Nobody wakes up one day and finds out they're amazing at something. There is just slamming your head into the wall, refusing to take no for an answer, being relentless until either the wall or your head breaks. You want to be a hero? You don't have to make some grand decision. There's no inspirational music. There's no montage. You just don't quit. And, I was just floored when I read, in this book, it was just, just a fun read that I came across that. And I just thought, wow, I think the whole banging your head against the wall till your head breaks or the wall breaks, that might be a little much, but I think that passage to me, it really spoke to me that, man, there's nothing, you don't have to have anything special inside of you to be resilient or to handle life. You just don't quit. You constantly move forward. There was a guest on my podcast, a guy named Tom Shea. He was a Navy, he's now retired, but he was a Navy SEAL. And he was telling me the story, tells the story in the podcast. He went through Hell Week. Hell Week is to become a Navy SEAL, you have got to make it through Hell Week. And very few make it through Hell Week. It is rough. But he went through it actually 5 times, but you only normally get one shot at it. But he had some extenuating circumstances. He had he broke a collarbone or something during it, and then he had some horrible sickness. So they let him continue to do it. And he finally, made it through Hell Week. But he said, what Hell Week is and what they want to do, before you can become a Navy SEAL, it's not that they're not looking for the strongest, physically strongest people or the best skilled at doing this or that. What they want people that don't quit. And what Hell Week does, according to Tom, is he says, they want you to quit. You've got to prove to them that you're worthy of being a Navy SEAL. Hell Week gives you every opportunity to quit. It makes it easy for you to quit. And those that become Navy SEALs are the ones that just last. They don't take the opportunity to quit. They just make it through Hell Week, which I thought was very interesting. And it's such a parallel to life, really, in that, just you can make it, just don't give up. And another thing that I hope you take away from this is that we only have one life. This is it. And, you got to make it great. You can't settle for average. You can't settle for just okay. So now, let's see, those in my class of 88, we're roughly, I just turned 57. So we're roughly 57, 56, 58. We're in there. And, I've had a wonderful, great life through now. I don't know what tomorrow is going to hold, but I know I don't have any plans on stopping doing what I'm doing anytime soon. But I do know, though, that, and I don't know if you guys are like this, but I'm at this age where you do kind of start thinking about, well, my best years are probably behind me. At least physically. But there's still so much more I want. But you're thinking, God, at age 57, we're clearly past half of our life. I mean, I don't think many of us are going to live to 114. And so, what do we want? What do we want through the rest of our lives? I mean, I can tell you, when it comes to resilience, I'm going to find out how resilient I am between now through the rest of my life, because, it's, as I've gotten older, it's just become more difficult physically. I remember when, gosh, being at Davidson, and it's kind of so hard, it's so weird to think back. I was only 3 years removed from my spinal cord injury as a freshman at Davidson. I mean, it's kind of amazing to look back and think, God, it was just that. Now it's been what, 42 years since then. And it's just, gosh, it's amazing how time flies. Of course, I'm not telling anybody here that, then we all know that. And I mean, God, yeah, I remember, walking at Davidson. I mean, my gait is not pretty, but it was, I never really struggled. I mean, it may look like I struggled, but it was never a struggle for me to walk at Davidson. When my kids were little, I would go to the Disney parks with them. I would walk all of them in a 3 or 4 day period, never think about getting in a scooter or a wheelchair. Now I was in Tallahassee last weekend. My best friend from high school's son is a pitcher at Wake Forest, and they were playing Florida State. So I went over there to watch them play. And just walking in from the parking lot, it was probably about a 200-yard walk just to the stands and then up the stairs. I mean, of course I did it, but the knee, the ankle, the hip, oh man, this hurts. And it's just a different world right now. So I guess what I'm saying is, what I've done so far physically up to age 57 has been easy. Now it's going to get tough. So we'll see how resilient I am. I hope I can pull through, but we'll see. But then and when we die, there's if you're buried in a cemetery, there's a tombstone or a grave, a headstone that it's got the date of your birth, the date of your death, and then there's the dash in between. Well, the dash is your life, and so it comes down to, what do you want your dash to be? What do you want people to remember you for? What would you want your legacy to be? And it just depends. Some people want to, I guess, when they pass away, they want to be remembered for doing a bunch of great stuff. Some people just want to say, look, man, I don't have to be remembered for anything, but I had a hell of a life. And that's good enough too. I mean, it's really depends on what you want. One thing I've done is, I've enjoyed writing the book. I love doing the podcast. I do, other things. I learned how to, well, I'm no good at it, but I oil paint some, but some are good enough to actually go on the walls in my house. Most of them have to stay in the garage because my wife says they suck and they're not good enough. But I do occasionally get a couple that are good enough to go inside. But it's just, I've always wanted to do it, so I did it. And I don't like, it kind of goes back to you do have, this is the one life you get, and we don't get another one. And so what do you want to do with it? But I've been incredibly fortunate in my life, and I guess this story that I'm about to tell, this kind of, I guess this is a metaphor for my life. This is several years ago. My family, we were vacationing up in the Tennessee mountains. They had one of those resorts where it says at the outdoor water park, and they had one of those slides where it's a water slide where you stand in it, and then the trap door falls and you fall and you just plummet and you go real fast and you loop around. So I really wanted to do that, but it was a 6-story climb up the stairs to get to it. And so I'm sitting over there thinking, man, I really want to do that, but I go over there, it's going to be tough getting up. that, people are going to be, staring at me as I'm walking up the stairs. But, I decided, look, I'm going to do it anyway. And so I do it, I get up to the top of this thing, and then of course, I can't bring my cane with me because I can't turn down the tube. And so I finally get to the top of this thing, get to the platform, and I get over there to the tube, and I, step up into the thing, and there's this like 16-year-old girl over there who's kind of running the show up there, that, hitting the trap door. She's looking at me like, what are you doing? And so, I just kind of didn't pay attention to it. I just got in there and said, all right, let's go. And so, 3, 2, 1, trap door goes down. You go so fast, it's over in about 6 seconds. But, it was just awesome. I mean, it was such a fun thing to do. But I guess the point of the story is that, you can't sit life out. Life is a participation sport. And, you got to get in the game. And then the other takeaway from that for me is, you can't not do something because you're concerned about what you look like doing it. It was, to make that trek up there. It was difficult. It was, people looking at you like, God, what's this guy doing? But you can't, in your life, if you decide this is something you want to do, you cannot, not do it or not go forward because you're worried about how you might look. And also, and it kind of blends into, you can't worry about failing in your life because, you cannot not do something because of a fear of failure. Because, failing, you listen to all the, successful, business people or scientists, or that they fail, and then they're successful. And failing is just part of it. That's how you learn. But and then just kind of in summary, these are some of the things that I've learned in my life is, I think you've got to live a life filled with passion. You gotta enjoy life. To me, it's just a marvel. I can, and it's the small things for me. I can sit out back on my porch and watch my bird feeder and see all these different kind of birds coming in, the cardinals, the blue jays, the whatever. And it's just, it's just a marvel to sit there and watch that. So to me, it's the small things in life that should drive your passion. Just going to a movie and sitting there with a thing of popcorn and a Coke. That to me, having a great time with your friends. It's the small things that really, to me, that's what drives the happiness. The second thing is you got to work hard. And, a lot of, I give this talk to other people, but it's usually younger people. I don't really need to tell people here that you need to work hard, because I'm sure we all have, but it's fun. The luckiest people that I've come across in my life seem to be the ones that have worked the hardest. But one thing I've also said, though, that life is meant to be fun. You got to have fun. And one thing I've never done is I've never come back from a vacation with my family and I thought, man, I wish if I would have just cut that short by a day or two, I could have got a few extra days in the office. I could have billed more hours, man. I should have done that. That's one thing I have never said and never will do, because life is, what's the point? If you don't have a great time, why are we even here? Number 3, don't take yourself too seriously. Man, you got to be able to laugh at yourself. And this kind of goes back to, you got to be able to fail. You got to be able to make mistakes, but you got to be able to laugh at yourself. Because if you don't, you're not going to grow. If you're so afraid of making mistakes or failing, you're going to be stagnant, and you're just going to be worried about, people laughing at you making a mistake, in which nobody really does. And so, I think that's very important, that you just cannot take yourself too seriously. Now, the next one, make great relationships, and that's, they in the characteristics or pillars of resilience, they some of these websites, they put that in there. And I can tell you, to me, it's the most important thing in my life are my relationships. I've got some of the best friends, like just going over to Tallahassee last week, that I've been friends with that guy since junior high school. And here we are now. He's a year older than I am. He's 58, I'm 57. And we've been friends, very good friends, our entire lives. Our kids are roughly the same age. They're friends. I got some of my buddies from Davidson. We go down to New Smyrna Beach every year in the summer. Their families know my family. And it's just a wonderful thing to have that support, because when, it's great when you have successes in your life, you get to share them with people that care. But when you have bad times in your life, you got people there that can, you can talk to. And it's just, I think that probably most people that go through depression, it's probably because, I'm not a psychiatrist, but it's probably because they're lonely. And I think that's probably the worst thing ever, just to not have a solid group of friends that you can do things with and share your life with. And then the last thing is as far as your life or leading a good life is to try to be a good person. And this is how I end my book. And so I was just going to kind of read this, because it's kind of this is how I explain it. And I say, finally, and this last one is a hard one, work on being a good person. Make an effort to be good. Make an effort to be supportive. Make an effort to be moral. Make an effort to be truthful. Make an effort to be reliable. This, of course, will constantly be a work in progress, and you may never reach your goal of being that good person. I know I haven't, but I try. We all have dark sides, but it's the mindset you have and the effort to step back from a situation and look at your actions to realize if you're going down a good path or not. And then I say, this is the last part of the book. And this kind of goes with what we're saying. I said, remember, you only have one life. Make it great, and make it great now. To use a sports saying, leave it all out on the field. And I'll leave you with my favorite quote from A.A. Milne, who, that's author of the Winnie the Pooh books. It's a conversation between Piglet and Pooh, and Pooh says, "What day is it?" "It's today," squeaked Piglet. "My favorite day," said Pooh. So I guess that's my talk on resilience. And I would love to hear, you guys give me your thoughts. All right, Jim, I see you've unmuted. Does that mean you're ready?
Roz, thank you for doing that. I bet that was really good. And one of the things that resonated to me, and not just what you said, but how you said it, was kind of the having the optimistic outlook being so critical. There's that movie, Best Marigold Hotel. The main character says, everything will be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. That's kind of like the optimist creed, and I can hear it coming from you. And I think personally that's if you can find that attitude, it can make hardships much easier.
Yeah, I also wanted to say thank you, Rod. I feel like I hear such wisdom in you, and you've got such just a positive attitude. I was kind of curious, if you felt like you had that attitude even at 15, like if you had that before your accident, or if that's something you've learned. And then I also wanted to ask if you like what you would say or what you've learned from some of your guests about best practices in terms of what, finding inspiration, whether it's, exercising, meditating, reading. What would you say about that?
Yeah, well, first on the first one, when I broke my neck, I will say I was a very confident person because I had excelled in sports. And so I had I was confident going into it. And after it happened, I remained a confident person. But, I was kind of thinking the other day that, but when you're 15 years old and you have something like that happen, a 15-year-old brain can't really wrap itself around how devastating that injury really is, and how your life is going to change so much physically. But one thing I will say, between now and like when I was at Davidson, looking back, I was so immature when I was at Davidson. I mean, as we get older, you're just like, gosh, I was just, man, and of course, this is a little off topic, but if I had the chance to go back to Davidson, I would do things so much differently. I would have engaged in some of the more of the opportunities there instead of, I did well in class, but it was, going to school and basically having fun. There was so much more to offer there that I wish I would have taken more advantage of. But yeah, I often think back on my immaturity when I was younger. But and as far as the people on my podcast, yeah, there's so many life lessons that they give. But one is to have a support staff. It's rely on people. A common theme that comes out is hope. You got to have hope in your life. And I do want to tell one quick story about one of them. There's a guy who I had him on this season. He's a retired sergeant in the Army. His name was Rick Yarosh. He was in Afghanistan in his vehicle on a mission. They ran over an IED and it blew up. And where he was in the vehicle, it was the fuel tank is right below it, and so he's on fire. It's just amazing. Burned so badly. He had his knee below, his right leg below the knee was amputated. All of his fingers were gone from the burns. His whole face was basically gone. And he came on the show. He was so great. And what he said was, he goes, I had to now face my new life without a face. And he is so positive. And one thing he said, and some other people that have had these horrible events happen to them, they have said, I would not have changed it for the world. They've said, it's not like I wanted this to happen, but it's happened. And now that it's happened, I'm going to make the best of it. And, and some of them have almost, they said that I was kind of sleepwalking through life. And now this event has occurred and it's just completely changed my outlook. I want to do this now. I want to do this now. I want to help people now. I'm not going to do this same mundane job that I had before, because I know now how precious life is. And man, there's just, to hear that from these people, and it's something. And I'm telling you that the fact that I get to talk to these people, man, just if you need any inspiration, and I tell you guys, these episodes are so good. I really would encourage all of you to, just get on Spotify or Apple or wherever and just, subscribe to Rocket Motivation. You can just have them, there's 72 episodes, just anytime you feel like you want to just pick any of them. They're all good. So that, I mean, that's about, you know, that, yeah, it's amazing how resilient people are when they go through tough times.
Mhm.
All right, well, I want to be mindful of time. Are there any other questions for Rod tonight? All right, well, Rod, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. I know we all have learned a lot and have a lot to take with us. So we really appreciate your conversation tonight. I also want to thank the class of 1988 reunion committee for sponsoring this event. Just so everyone knows, we are going to send a follow-up email in the next few days. It'll have Rod's contact information, a short survey, and then a few other pieces of helpful info. So please be on the lookout for that. This event was recorded and it'll be up and available on the website in about 2 to 3 weeks. So be on the lookout for that as well. But thank you all for joining this evening. Thank you, Rod, again, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their night.
All right. And thanks, guys,
Thanks, Rod.
for showing up.
Yeah, enjoyed it, Rod. Take care.
Okay.